Collaboration, I think, has many faces at this conference, many kinds of meanings. I think one of the most important for all of us to deliberate is this one, that the kind of work we're all doing requires a new kind of collaboration in an intense way between researchers and practitioner settings, and I think we've seen that in all of the projects. We no longer have problems of just designing and getting it right and dropping it in. The kind of work we're all engaged in is very reciprocal, using things in context and revising them in those contexts from the researcher side. From the practitioner side, how does all of this mean something in terms of better situations for kids? How is it that that primary responsibility is addressed for the kinds of work that we do? So I think the conversation about collaboration between these members of the teams is absolutely critical for a group like this to really deliberate carefully at this particular point in time. Because the work is now long-term. It involves multiple perspectives, and it involves multiple methods and multiple ways of working together. And I don't think we've got all those kinks worked out, as Carl reminded us in his opening remarks. I think we have problems of methods to discuss. So they're both research collaborative methods and curriculum collaborative methods, and we don't often talk about the latter. I think we also have problems of fusing a new kind of community. I think it's wonderful to have the teacher strand in this conversation. I think we need to figure out how to do that more and better. Because we're talking about a fused conversation, I think, more than we're talking about just listening to each other's perspectives. And that has yet to develop fully, from my point of view. Personally, my experience with this has been sort of schizophrenic in a funny kind of way. I was trained as a psychologist doing experimental work, working in schools, but what it meant to work in schools in those days was to go in with your project, your research project, as many of you also experienced, and hope the kids can come to the library to do your particular problem, particular analysis. I then got trained by colleagues and friends of mine at Bank Street College of Education in New York, which is a very Deweyan-oriented education school. In 1916, it was set up to train teachers in the kinds of methods we're still talking about. And one of the things those teachers had were particular aprons, a particular design of apron, where they had pads and pencil places to go around as they were teaching and make notes of things. Those notes became part of clinical conversations about the kids, but that was very different from a research conversation. So I also had that perspective on how one does research in classrooms, and I used to get headaches trying to bridge those two things because they didn't naturally align. I think much more now they are doing so, but I think we have a lot of continuing conversation about, from my point of view, how to do that. So what kind of moves need to be made? In listening to the papers in this conference, people are talking about the following kinds of moves that need to be made to fuse this more powerfully. Evolving roles, some people talk about. Developing language, developing new and shared language. An enlarged view of purpose for all of this work. An awareness of the tensions between the two worlds, because we are working to multiple purposes and each of them has their own tensions. So differences in time scale, differences in the nature of evidence that's useful and how it's used and how it's talked about, differences in the organizations in which we work, all of those introduce tensions into the situation that in some sense need to be surfaced, I think.